Hi, everybody. Welcome to Live with Google for Nonprofits. My name is Isha, and I'm a program manager on the Google for Nonprofits team. If you're joining us for the first time today, Live with Google for Nonprofits is a twice monthly show in which we bring in different speakers, some across Google, some across other partners, to talk about things that you've requested in our surveys. So we've talked about many things such as how to get started with Google Ad Grants, things like the Online Marketing Challenge, and various trainings across Google. So in the last episode, we actually talked about how to make the most of your YouTube channel. So if you're interested in that, after this episode, you can go ahead and look on our YouTube channel on the Live with Google for Nonprofits playlist, and you can watch any of the previous episodes, and the live chat does replay. So you can actually see the questions that were answered in real time. So speaking of live chat, you should be able to see the live chat on the right of your screen, or if you're on your phone, it should be below the actual video, and you can type in any questions that you have during the show. We do ask if you can keep your questions related to the topic. That would be awesome. We won't be able to answer one-on-one technical questions about your specific account, but any general questions about how to make the most of your product, that would be super useful for everyone else joining us today too. If you're having any issues seeing the live chat, you can try to just refresh your browser, and that should help you see it. And then if that's still not working, let us know, and our teammates in the live chat will help troubleshoot any issues that you might be having. Same thing, if you have any issues hearing or seeing us, type that in the live chat, and we'll work on fixing it as soon as possible. So a few other reminders, this is recorded. So if you want to go back and view any part of it, rewatch the entire thing, anything like that, you can do that after the episode, and it'll be on the same link that you're viewing it now. So it exists on our YouTube channel. To look at future episodes, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This should give you reminders of new episodes, other types of YouTube content, nonprofit stories, things like that. And we hope that you continue to engage with us. And at the end, we do always send out a survey. So make sure you respond to the survey and let us know what other topics you're interested in hearing about. As I mentioned, every episode, we always bring on topics that are requested in the survey results, actually. So this topic, Google My Business, that we'll be talking about today was requested by a nonprofit who joined us in a previous episode. So speaking of today's topic, we're super excited to have Marco here. So I'll be bringing him on the screen shortly. And he's been at Google for 2 years, and he works on the Google Store. So he really knows the importance of an online presence. And so Marco will be joining us to tell us more about how to make the most of your Google My Business profile. And you might be saying, what is Google My Business? What is a profile? And why does this relate to nonprofits? So Marco is here to answer those questions. So I'll go ahead and bring him on right now. Hi, Marco.
Hi, Isha. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I'm really happy to be part of this amazing set of live shows. But let's get into the topic. So, as Isha was saying, my work is very much related to the online presence. I work on the Google Store. For who doesn't know, it's an e-commerce. It's a Google e-commerce that sells made by Google devices. And I recently started, in particular during the COVID times, I recently started working closely with small businesses and with no-profit in trying to help them improve their digital presence. As you know, the customer is changing the way they interact with businesses, and their consumer journey is made of many different touch points. Those touch points could be the website that you have, could be YouTube video, could be social channels. But one of the most significant, and I can tell from my experience working on the Google Store, is search. It is the number one channel, and it drives the majority of the traffic. Google My Business, it helps you have visibility on search as well as on Google Maps. So let's jump into the topic. I'll share quickly an agenda of the points that we're going to look at. First of all, we'll look into why do you need a profile? What are the main reasons? We'll take a look at how the Google My Business profile looks like from a customer perspective, but also from a manager perspective. We'll look at how to create the profile and how to manage it. and we'll look into some extra features that hopefully will help you, really stand out in front of your customers. And then we'll leave some time for question and answer at the end. So, starting with the first question, why do you need Google? Why do you need a profile on Google? There are, as I was saying, like search is the main channel for traffic. Certainly is for online businesses and for businesses that are trying to get more customers online. I want to give you some data points and some insights into how important is search and why you should really think about improving your online presence on those platforms. First of all, if you think about how people search, and if you maybe think about put your mind in a customer that, for example, is trying to organize something during the weekend, and they want to, probably in better times, they probably want to go, for example, to a museum. The first thing they will do is to go online, go on Google, search museums nearby. And that's something that we have seen at Google a lot year over year. The amount of people that have searched available near me as a search phrase has almost doubled. So that's impressive. It means people are looking around them on the digital world. They're searching around them. And also 4 out of 5 people or users are actually using search to find locations, and to find directions, and to find open hours. So that's a very relevant use case for search. To give you another data point that I think is something super that kind of hit me when I saw it, is 30% of total mobile searches are related to location. So imagine everything that people write on Google, 30% is entirely location. So that kind of gives you the perspective of how important it is to have a profile on search and Google Maps. Another important reason is that when people search for your exact business name, that can appear above everything else. So even in terms of priority, even above paid ads, and it's right to the right side. For example, in the knowledge space of the search page, and it will be kind of your the first touch point that a customer sees when searching on Google. Another aspect that we tend to forget is that even if we are now in a more digital world, consumers are still looking to have the contact, and that's why, for example, Google gets through the call button on the Google profile. It gets billions of calls every day. And I don't know you, but for example, during this pandemic, if I was looking to go to a restaurant or to get a pizza somewhere, I was always calling the number to check if they were open. So it's very important to have that visibility and to be visible there. The other aspect that is very important of Google My Business is not just your profile, but it's also a way for interacting with the customer. So you can share photos, you can share informations like opening hours. You can add a link to your website. Don't forget, like, linking your website is important because it's a very good source for traffic as well. And you can post updates. We'll look at more in detail, but just to give you another data point, having an up-to-date Google profile from the perspective of the customer makes you stand out, and you are 2.7 times more reputable. And I know that reputation is quite important in the no-profit world, so that's something certainly to have in mind. Now, the first question, or the first kind of action that I want you to take if you're new to Google My Business is just ask yourself this question: what happens if somebody looks of my no-profit on Google, but also on similar no profits? Where do you appear in the search journey? Are you right on the top? How are customers finding you? And then kind of follow-up question is, or follow-up information is, if you don't have a Google My Business profile and you search your business, you may find out that business profile is already existing, and that's because Google Maps in particular is a community full of different supporters that share information and add content, and therefore you may have been already you may have been present already in Google My Business, so as with a Google profile. So that's why it's important to kind of be aware of this profile. But for who of you still has some doubts on what exactly Google My Business looks like, let's have a look at from a consumer perspective at a typical Google My Business profile. This is how it would appear on your mobile. You'll have, as you can see, right at the top, the reviews, obviously the business name, and then you have right at the top the photos. Not by chance. Those are definitely some key points of key aspects of your profile. You have some quick links right at the bottom. Those are where your customers will start interacting with you. Calls we mentioned, directions is very important, obviously, and website. Then you have some location information if you have a location, and then hours, so opening hours. Remember the time where if you wanted to see if something was open, you had to go through the website, go to the bottom of the page, or find the hours somewhere. Google is trying to bring more information in an easy way, more closer to the customer, so at the search without having to enter the website itself, which I find very helpful. And then, so this is kind of how it looks like from the customer. From the business perspective, and please don't be too scared about these like lots of panels and lots of points into this platform, but basically there is an interface that you will be able to manage, and with this interface you'll be able to manage your profile both on search and maps. So it's kind of one place where you can manage both. If you don't have a Google My Business profile, that's perfectly fine. Let's go through rather quickly the steps. If you have any question, there is always there are actually many guides that help you step by step. I see a question: how can Google My Business be useful for online-based no profit? I think Google My Business in general, even if you don't have a location, there are different things you can do. You can have a service area. So you can, if you, for example, support a community, instead of having a physical location where customer come to you, you can say, I cover this area. So that's an information that is available on Google Maps. Otherwise, people can still leave reviews and kind of share their experience with you as a business. So, for example, a volunteer that has worked with you can leave a review and say, I had a great, amazing experience with this business, with this charity. For example, I totally recommend them. And you can interact as well with the customer in that way. So it's obviously more relevant for physical location, but I would say it's not less important for who doesn't have a physical location, and in particular online-based business, because, and again, if someone searches for your name, you will appear right at the top, and that's super important, and that gives the perception that you are a solid business. You can have some description of your business, you can have some reviews, headquarters, like basic information about your business. So I think it's in any way it gives you it makes you look like more solid business, and you have a better reputation just by being present there. While if I wouldn't find you there, I would have doubts that maybe there's something wrong with the business, or I don't know how the quality that I can expect from this business, from this no profit. let's look into sorry. Let's look into the step by step to create your profile. So first of all, just go on google.com/business. That's where you can start your journey to set up your profile. You'll need to have a Google account. If you don't have a Google account, that's not a problem. You can create a new one. It's very quick. It can take up to 5 minutes. So just go ahead, set a Google account. You can use existing email addresses and set it up. And then the first thing you need to do is find or add your organization. As we said, your organization may be already present, but if not, and let's assume it's not there, you can just type your business name and proceed to the next step. Then it asks you, do you have a location or not? It's totally fine if you don't have a location, as I was saying. But in case yes, you can add where customers can find you. And that's kind of the next step. Then you go ahead, press next, enter your contact information. The phone number is important, is where people are gonna call. So when you see the phone button, that's where, that's the number they're gonna use. And then the website. Website, personally, as an e-commerce, as a person that works in e-commerce, I think is fundamental. Again, if you don't have one at the moment, it's totally fine because Google My Business helps you also in that. So you can choose the third option, which says get a free website based on the information. I nowadays it's getting more and more easy to create your own website. So I recommend also to maybe build one at some point. But if you don't have the time and if you just want to set it up quickly, you can use this platform. It gives you a very simple layout, a website, and it serves the purpose, and it may be perfectly fine for your no profit. Going to the next one, just confirm all the information and click finish. And then this comes the verification step. Obviously, Google wants to make sure that you actually own that business, you're responsible for that business. So the way that Google checks that is by sending you a postcard at the address that you mentioned. The postcard will be sent to you in 5 days, and it will give you a code that you can use into the verification. As we said, for online-based business, and in case you don't have a physical location, in case you don't want to add your office location, which can be hidden, by the way, so the public doesn't know your office location, you can also sign up with the phone number or with an email. Obviously, Google will require some information so that they can verify your identity and the fact that you own the business. But that's pretty much it from a setup perspective. I know I've gone through very quickly. I'm sure if there are questions, I think there are many resources. We'll link them maybe at the end. But yeah, okay, I got a question. What is the best practice for how frequently you post non-event promo-based content on GMB? That's a great question. I'll get to you in a second. My suggestion is that you could try and post rather frequently, at least once per week. You don't necessarily need to post every week. Maybe if you're just updating the opening hours, maybe just refresh the hours are updated so the customer know that if they see updated in August 2020, they may be concerned that that's not the latest. So you may just say, yeah, hours are updated, for example. But otherwise, just interacting with the Google My Business. But we'll look into it more in detail in a second. So because I know that everyone of you is super busy and you're probably struggling between marketing, finance, and like different functions, I want to give you 4 things that I think are super important and will cover 80% of what you need to do on Google My Business. And those should be some. Hopefully, this will give you at the end to-do list that is something that you can do in 15 minutes every week. So it shouldn't be too much of a trouble to maintain. So let's start with the number one. So make sure basic information is up to date. That it sounds pretty obvious, but in reality is not, because business hours, especially now, are more important than ever. You know how COVID and the pandemic has changed this. Uh, simply has put some more constraints on business hours where you can be open and so on. And so I think that's super relevant to have updated. Um, you can select the days, you can select the hours, so it should be a pretty straightforward interface. Um, and you can also select special hours. So that's something that I recommend to do, especially for holidays or particular moments in which you may be closed, or you may work on only certain hours. The reason why is that if you don't have special hours set, then automatically Google will say the hours may vary, and that's as a signal is not a great signal to the consumer. I prefer to have very clear opening hours whenever I whenever I have my own business. I want to make sure the customer feels confident that they can come and they don't need to call. Alternatively, what I was doing as a consumer, I was calling through the button to check, are your hours correct? But that's another step that you can save the customer to do. Add photos. I mean, we all know this is kind of a social, it's also a bit of a social platform for us, so we all know how photos are important. Customers are more likely to visit the place if you add photos. You can choose cover photos, so you can actually select the picture that you like the most. You could potentially get a photographer to get a nice picture of your business, of your team, something that represents you and that you think is most relevant. But I mean, at this point, I think any good camera on a phone would do. And so you can select the cover photo, you can select your profile photo, you can add videos. So it's always nice and kind of expected again from a customer to see something about the business when they visit online. Um, Reviews. The reviews are, I will say this a lot, but reviews are super important. What is even more important is to respond to the reviews and to be present in this conversation, because reviews are good for two reasons. First of all, customers are very, as someone that is giving a review is making an effort to give you an advice, or to either to thank you because you had an amazing experience, or to give you some advice. So I take that every feedback very seriously and very with lots of attention. But also you can respond, and if someone has had a bad experience, you can try and make it up to him, or to this person. So you can say, come back, we have we have fixed the issue, and you can gain that customer back. And you're going to show to the other customers that look at the reviews, this business or this nonprofit is actually caring about this issue that arises, or this situation. So they're gonna be happy of the fact that you're actually interacting with them. You can also ask for more reviews. You can generate a link, and this link you can use in many touch points. So for example, thank you for the donation. Here is a link if you want to leave a review. So that's also a way to encourage. And we know that the more reviews you have, the more relevant you will be also in the Google search. So if there are, let's say many no-profit, we don't want to call them competitors because we're all doing, something for good, but you may want to appear first in the map. So reviews are very important. The more reviews you have, the better it is for your business, for your company. And the last one, sharing updates, which is kind of the question that I got before. There are different kind of updates other than promo and events. You can just share something that is new, that's very relevant during COVID times. If you had to change something, you can launch a fundraiser for a limited period of time. Just remember the post will be automatically will go away after a certain period of time. So it's important to keep updating your community and talking to your community. And as a customer, if I go and Google a business or a nonprofit, I look at it and I see that they have interacted, they've posted something. I can see that things are happening, and I can get the update. But I also see that this company is very, mindful of telling and giving information to their customers. So that's something I look up when I look on a business online. So getting to the short of the to-do list, which I think is very useful if you need to take something away from this meeting, from this live. I think this page is very important. Take a screenshot, whatever you want. But these are the things that I recommend doing 15 minutes per week, 10 minutes per week to keep your account alive, to keep your account updated. So review your suggestion. Obviously, people that visit you, they may have experienced something else. So for example, the hours were different, or they got to the place and it was closed. They will suggest and they will contribute. So you need to review those contributions and potentially adjust them if they, with good intention, but if they were wrong, for example. Up-to-date pictures, respond to the reviews I already mentioned, and add posts. So no, not overdo it, but it's important to be present, let's say. What we have just done, as I was saying, 80%. Now, if you really want to excel and you want to stand out, there are other things that you can do. Something that I really like, because of my job, I'm quite analytical. I like to understand and deep dive on why customers have come to the site. So the platform that you have available in Google My Business is called Insights, and it gives you some, useful data point on what are your customers doing. So, for example, how do they interact with the different buttons? What did they view? But that's just one. But for example, something I really like is where do they come from? So you can see with the heat map where they were searching when they were looking for your place. So that can give you some important insight, first of all, on the area that you are attracting more people to. So if you see that this area is particularly relevant, you can discover new things, and you can find ways to be more relevant for that part of the city, or of the region. The other thing is that you can do is that you can add information to your site, to your website, to your profile, based on these insights, because you see lots of people call, and that's obviously there is an information that is missing on the profile. So maybe you need to update your opening hours and things like that. So it's interesting to discover, at least, and you can spend lots of time on it and figure out many things about your customers. You can add attributes. Those are always nice. They give a bit more color to your page and provide useful information. The most frequent ones are, for example, payment cards accepted, or accessibility. So accessible with a wheelchair, for example. Those are very useful and provide more detail about your business. If you want to be super sophisticated, you can add 360 view from the street view. So you can, for example, show around, I think this is used a lot in museums and art galleries. Now you can see and navigate and help the customer have a virtual journey of your location. I found that super interesting, and it's fairly easy to set up. You just need the camera, and you can create your 360 photo. Another feature that, and just be mindful that Google is adding features continuously, and it's very alive, Google My Business, because it's always trying to help customers to find the right place and the right information and personalize it. So this is another one, messaging. So you can, as an owner, you can receive messages, and you can respond in real time. Or you can have automatic messages as responses. So you can set it up pretty much as you want, and you can turn it off if you think you cannot manage the messaging. Another nice one is you can order some free marketing toolkits. So, we all love free stickers and things that we can put around. Even, just on my laptop is full of stickers. But you can order them and you can have them around your location where you are, and it can help you get more reviews. You can use reviews that are very positive, and you can display them in a nice way. So there's lots of things that you can do with this content. So we're getting kind of to the end of the presentation. I think the final point that I really care to pass on is how hopefully you got a bit of how important it is to be part of the search journey and the Google Maps journey. But it doesn't take too much to have a strong presence on these two touch points. These four are probably the keys to GMB, to Google My Business. So having complete data, informations, attributes, all those things that we have talked about, regularly updating opening hours, responding to reviews, and adding photos. This is kind of the summary of this live, in my opinion, and the thing that I really recommend doing. And this will improve your ranking. So the more reviews you have, the more relevant photos you have. It will help you stand out versus other organization nearby within your area. And finally, I think this live, is obviously hopefully I gave you some good insights, but I want to give you some tools also to find support if you need it afterwards. So the one thing that I recommend, if you haven't done it, is to go through the Google My Business Skill Shop course, which is online. Again, we can share the links if you haven't found it, but it's pretty easy to find. It's just Google My Business course. And you can find it online. It's quite quick, and it gives a lot of information, explaining much better than what I could do in this live. And then the last point, there is ways that you can get in touch. You can check the help center. So there's lots of questions and answers that are, of people that have been through the same position before you, and they have already found a solution. There is a Google My Business community where people share ideas and questions. They ask for, even give suggestion on the product and how can it be improved. And you can contact the support. So if you have any technical question, or your postcard doesn't arrive, or for any reason, feel free to get in contact, and they'll help you right away. And with that, I thank you very much, and I'll leave the word to Isha, and maybe we have some additional questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Marco. So while we wait for some questions, I'll go through a few reminders. But I also wanted to touch on a few points that Marco said and how they're especially relevant to nonprofits. I think, as he mentioned, when people are searching for you, especially if it's those who are looking for your services, for example, if you're a food bank and someone's trying to find your resources, it's especially important to keep your hours updated and your service availability updated for your community, as well as potential volunteers or donors. So that's one thing I just wanted to touch on. And then another thing that Jason mentioned in the live chat, which I saw, which is a great suggestion. He said he just wanted to mention that if you have a Google ad grant, you can connect it to GMB in order to add local extensions to your ad. So great point from Jason. So thank you for bringing that up. And we'll wait for some more questions to come in. And in the meantime, a few reminders. These are our resources for social and for our community forum. So you're on our YouTube channel now. So go ahead and subscribe since you're already here. It'd be awesome. And you can see videos from previous episodes. Also, if you're looking for more of like an actual introduction to Google for Nonprofits, in which we go through all of our product offerings and provide useful ways to use those products, we do have that on our YouTube channel. So you can go ahead and just go to youtube.com/Google for Nonprofits, and you'll see on our homepage there that there are some introductions to the Google for Nonprofits product. Also, we suggest following us on Twitter and liking us on Facebook so you can get up to date on the newest opportunities with Google for Nonprofits, as well as future events, live streams, and other tips and tricks for making the most of Google tools. One more thing, actually, speaking of that, is that the Google Earth team is providing a free workshop about creating stories using Google Maps. So definitely recommend on February 18th joining that one. And you can see the link to that on our social page there. So if you go to our Twitter account, you'll be able to see the link. We also have a community forum. You can post your questions and get answers from members of the Google for Nonprofits community. So those are a few reminders. We also have our survey. So it's goo.gle/webinar. If you go here, you can fill out the survey and you can let us know what you thought of today's live stream. And you can also suggest future topics. Like I said, this is how we actually source our topics every week, as we look at the survey results. So let's see if we have any more questions that came through in the meantime. All right. So so one other question we got was, how can I use alternative means to prove my address? I don't have a reliable postal service in my area. Marco, do you happen to know the answer to that question? Oh, I think you're muted. Sorry about that. There you go.
No worries. No worries. Yeah. So absolutely. I think I mentioned up in the slides, there are alternative ways to verify your address if you're not getting the postcard. One is through call, and one is through email. So while you go through the setup, make sure to skip the verification through postcard and select an alternative way of verifying, email, on phone, and the customer service team will get in touch and they'll be able to verify you without the address.
Okay, awesome. That's super helpful. One other question that we have is, during the pandemic, the way that users interact with maps and search has shifted. What do you think the most useful feature of GMB is in these current circumstances?
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, this is it comes back to as a user, and I probably you all experienced it during this time as a consumer a bit, is the uncertainty of the information that I find on Google search and on Google Maps. I guess many businesses have kind of struggled to keep the business hours up to date, and sometimes you may be just a little bit more concerned than visiting a place and potentially finding it closed. So I think absolutely probably the number one aspect that I would focus on is making sure that the opening hours are updated, and even if they haven't changed, the suggestion of just leaving an update and saying opening hours are updated, don't worry, we're working as normal, I think is a very helpful reassurance to the customer. And anyway, they will, in case they feel uncertain, they will call, and that's an option as well.
Okay, awesome. I think there was one more point brought by William that he mentioned, that a couple years ago he took pictures of a local business and posted them to Google Maps. And many of them have hundreds and thousands of views now. So that's just one more example. I know you mentioned earlier about how it's important to have photos on your Google My Business profile, and I totally agree, and seems like William agrees too. So I've even posted a few reviews on Google My Business in the past, and I've gotten some notifications that there's been thousands of viewers on those reviews too. So we highly recommend, especially for credibility for your nonprofit, if you are trying to get more donations and you want to make sure you stand out, it's really important to have this profile updated. I know in the past, like before I volunteered or donated to a nonprofit, I've looked to see at their profile to make sure that it was a cause that was legitimate and that everything looked good to go. And I think that just adds really to your credibility. So thank you so much, Marco, for this. I'm just going to check to see if there's any last questions before we wrap up. And it looks like that might be all the questions that we have. So thank you so much for joining us. Marco,
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Marco joined us all the way from Italy today, so we really appreciate that. And for those of you, I'll let you go ahead and I'll remove you from this chat, and I'll end with a couple reminders. So thank you again for all joining us. Make sure to fill out our survey and let us know what you think of today's event. You can definitely leave any feedback and suggestions that you have. We're super open to improving on this show. There will be captions that are posted after the event ends, so you'll be able to access those at the end. And yeah, as I mentioned before, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So thank you so much. And you can watch this show again anytime that you want on our YouTube channel. So have a great day or evening or whatever time zone you're in. And thank you for joining us today.